Hello and good evening. Today it's Saturday, April 27th, 2024. And today I thought it would be a good day to sit down and finally cover this topic that I've wanted to cover here on the channel for a while. I want to share my thoughts today on the XFL and the USFL merging to form the new United Football League, aka the UFL. Personally, if this is what it takes to make a spring football league a long-term success, then I'm good with it. I mean, I think that it's probably for the best for both leagues to come together and create something completely new. Well, create a brand new league based on the merger of those two leagues. I think it's a good idea. Instead of both leagues competing with one another, but having them both come together. Now you've got two smaller leagues that can now come together, build a league together. And I think long term, it's probably going to finally be the light that starts the fire. I think it's the spark that starts the fire for spring football. I really do believe that with Dwayne Johnson owning the XFL and now being part of the UFL, he brings a lot of publicity. He's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, or most well-known athlete in the world right now, or one of them for sure. He's an actor. He's even recently been in WrestleMania. He made a return to the wrestling ring. I mean, he's been in multiple big movies in recent years. He's also an entrepreneur. I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is one of the biggest athlete names out there. He really is. And, you know, it was a big thing for when he bought the XFL. That was pretty big that all of a sudden now you've got a big name, well-known household name like Dwayne Johnson owning the XFL, and now his league's merged with the USFL. I think that's a really good thing for spring football. And I'm optimistic that after 3 attempts to start the XFL and get it off the ground, that with this merger, I have faith that this is finally going to be a spring football league that will actually survive long term. At least I hope so, because I'm tired of all these league changes, ownership changes, leagues going under. One great spring football league. I hope that the UFL is that league that fills that void. I mean, as a Canadian, I have the luxury of watching the Canadian Football League in the summer, even though unfortunately it seems that more and more people aren't giving it the time of day anymore, which I think is really unfortunate, especially for my age bracket. But yeah, I mean, between the NFL, between the Super Bowl and the start of the Canadian Football League season, the fact that there's a new league in the springtime to fill that void, I think it's awesome. I really do. So, talking about the UFL, what's happened is they have a USFL division and an XFL division. So the XFL division obviously has 4 teams from the XFL. And the USFL league has 4 teams from their league, except what they've done is instead of having the Houston Gamblers, they've merged them with the Houston Roughnecks, and they've just kept the Houston Roughnecks name and branding, which I'm okay with. Even though I gotta admit, Houston Gamblers, I've seen an old logo of the Houston Gamblers, and I gotta be honest, I think I like the name Houston Gamblers better than Roughnecks. I really do. But that's me, but I'm fine with Roughnecks though. So there's 8 teams 4 from each league, essentially. And, the thing is, compared to even last year when the XFL came back for a third time and relaunched in 2023, 3 years after the attempted relaunch of 2020, which it was, when it started up in 2020, I started watching it every weekend. I was really enjoying what I was watching, but sadly the pandemic happened and Vince McMahon had to end up selling the XFL. Then Dwayne Johnson, his ex-wife, and Redbird Capital purchased the XFL from Vince McMahon. Then 2021, obviously, still in the pandemic, wasn't going to happen. I know for myself, I was really hoping that when we were starting to see things open up society-wise during the pandemic, that maybe the XFL would start up again in 2022. They decided, hey, let's take another year to really get things going or to get things ready on the business end. And then last year, they started up the XFL again. And for the first time in 22 years, we finally had a complete XFL season. And the Arlington Renegades won the first XFL championship in 22 years. Now the XFL is no more. And I also think it's nice that the league's got a fresh new name and a new start, because when you think of XFL, I mean, it's a league that has tried to get off the ground twice, and both times it didn't work, even though the second time was not the XFL's fault. Now they can start a new name and a new brand, and that brand and league, UFL, can build a name for itself. At least I hope so. But with the UFL, I mean, last year when they started up the XFL, one thing that I was not happy about was the total complete lack of games televised here in Canada. Now, if you live in the States, you didn't have this problem, but for us folks up here in Canada that actually wanted to give this new XFL owned by The Rock a chance, I wanted to watch it again because I enjoyed what I saw in 2020. But then by the end of the season, thankfully, they decided to start putting some games on ABC. And because I have cable up here in Canada, I do get some American networks. Thankfully, ABC is one of them. So I was able to watch a few games by the end of the season, and I was so happy. I was like, sweet. Finally, I can watch some XFL games for once. For the first time in years, literally. So now fast forward a year later with the United Football League, and so far every weekend I've been able to watch some games. I can't believe it. I feel like it's 2020 all over again, minus the horrific situation of being in a pandemic. Like, this is what I wanted to see 4 years ago. Football every weekend in the spring without a pandemic. I mean, sweet. Finally, I get to experience that. And I don't know about you viewers out there, but I've really been enjoying what I've been watching. I think it's been a decent game of football. Do I have any critiques? No, so far, no. I will say this. Now that we've got the United Football League, I'm really hoping that they take their time and have at least a good 2 or 3 seasons with this league with the existing teams before they start either relocating, expanding, or both. I mean, in my opinion, I think it's a good idea to at least give the cities that have got teams now a chance to build a bit of a fan base, build some attachment. I mean, that was one thing about the XFL last year when it relaunched. I was like, it would have been nice if they would have left the teams alone. But at the same time, I can also appreciate them wanting to put teams in places such as, for example, Birmingham or San Antonio. Actually, they didn't have a team in the XFL in Birmingham. No, I'm mistaken. I'm thinking USFL. But last year, they put teams in Vegas. They put a team in San Antonio with the Brahmas. And the other one that they had as well, I'm trying to think of, that was for last year, because last year they had the Arlington Renegades, San Antonio Brahmas, Houston Roughnecks, the St. Louis Battlehawks. Then there was the Seattle Sea Dragons and the DC Defenders. And then there was the Vegas Vipers. And, what's the other one I'm trying to think of here? This is driving me crazy. But anyway, yeah. Shoot. But what I noticed was that they moved the LA Wildcats, which they weren't doing that well anyway. I thought that it wasn't the best that they moved the New York Guardians to Orlando. And then they moved the Tampa Bay Vipers to Vegas. So I heard that Tampa Bay's attendance wasn't that great either, but I don't know. I feel, obviously I'm not running the league, so I don't make those decisions. Maybe that's a good thing. But I don't know. I hope that this league takes some time to keep the teams in the existing cities that they are in right now and give those cities and those fan bases a chance to build an attachment to their teams. I mean, we don't have to worry about the Battlehawks. I mean, they've had the best attendance in both the XFL and the UFL. And I'm so happy for the fans in St. Louis that get to enjoy pro football again, at least in some capacity, or semi-pro or whatever. I'm happy for those fans. It's been nice to watch. And I got to admit, I consider myself a Battlehawks fan. I mean, now that the Seattle Dragons are not in the league, I mean, I got to root for the Battlehawks. They've got the biggest fan base. I mean, I really feel for those fans considering they lost the Rams 8 years ago. Or no, 9 years ago now. Holy crap, time flies. So it's nice to see those fans have a team to get behind again. But going forward, though, I mean, where should they expand to? I mean, personally, I think it wouldn't hurt the UFL. I want to keep calling it the XFL. I don't think it would hurt the UFL to try New York again. That's a big TV market, and if you got New Yorkers watching, that'll add a lot of viewers to your TV ratings too, I'm sure. Also, being from the Pacific Northwest myself, just up the I-5 from Seattle, and on the Canadian side, of course, I would love to see Seattle get a team back, get a UFL team as well. Two other places that I think would be good would be Orlando and San Diego. I mean, San Diego has lost the Chargers years ago, about a decade ago now, about 8 years ago now, if I'm not mistaken. But, I think if they could play it in the same stadium that the Chargers used to play in, I think that would be a pretty good well-attended team. I have a feeling that a team in San Diego would probably do really well and be a St. Louis Battlehawks type of situation. I think there'd be a lot of football-hungry fans that would really love a UFL team in San Diego. So I think San Diego, Seattle, New York, and Orlando would be good spots for the UFL if they decide to add more teams or relocate to other places. I mean, one thing I've noticed is there's been some teams that haven't had the best attendance so far. So, I mean, I hope that changes. But after 2 or 3 seasons, if they have to relocate anybody, I mean, I do hope that they consider at least sending a team to Seattle and definitely a team to San Diego. And actually another place that wouldn't, I got a funny feeling they probably would do okay would be a team in Kentucky. But for you folks out there who live in Kentucky or live in the U.S., I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. Kentucky doesn't have professional football. They do have college football, but I kind of have a feeling they would really take to an UFL team well. But as far as I'm concerned, I really hope that this is the spark that starts the fire for spring football and keeps the fire burning forever. I believe that if there's anybody who can get this off the ground, it's Dwayne Johnson. And hopefully the XFL will actually last multiple seasons in a row without folding, without having financial issues. And the best thing about it compared to even the XFL 4 years ago is that you can actually see games on public television networks. Hopefully by next year, they'll start to get some. Hopefully TSN will start picking up some UFL games like they did with the XFL 4 years ago before the COVID pandemic started. I mean, truth is, I'm really excited about this league. I'm glad that we've got a spring football league. And hopefully this is the one that finally sticks. But anyways, how do you feel about this merger between the USFL and the XFL to form the new UFL, which is the United Football League? Rather suiting name considering the merger of two leagues. But anyway, I digress. If you have any comments, feel free to comment down below. I'm going to call it a wrap at this point. With that, take care, and as always, bye for now.